countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Live from the X-Bit. It's time for more.
Why are we suddenly live from places? I thought we were just in a comic book shop. How can you have the dinging of the door for the comic book shop if we're live in a X-Bit?
Like the book we're going to be talking about today. You're overthinking this. Jay. Don't worry about our internal continuity. People will find the last comic shop. It's on all the podcasters. It's very simple to find. But what do we do here every single season?
We review and talk about comic books. That's right. We open the shop up, wherever it may be, to newbies to help them find their way underneath the big comic book tent.
And we keep the lights on for those oldies who want to level up by talking about one of the best books of the 2000s in my mind.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no question. I would wholeheartly agree with that. I'm the host of The Most, Andy Larson. I'm joined by Chad Smith and J.A. Scott, as well as our great friend, Mikey Wood. Yay! Mikey, thanks so much for joining us for our third season.
Longer than Firefly lasted.
That's true. We still got 2 more seasons to go before we catch Farscape.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but we definitely killed, like, Mantis and
Battlestar Galactica.
Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.
Good pull.
So, in any case, another good pull that we're having on this week's show is Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerads. Yeah, I think we're going to go back to our whole starting and stopping seasons with Tom King books. Hopefully, by the end of season 3, you'll get Human Target. Unless Chad makes us read it before then, because he's champing at the bit.
It's so good.
That's how we talk when we're at the stable. And speaking of stables, one of the staples of the last comic shop is doing our weekly polls. Yes, ever since the olden days when they first started, J. Scott's been nice enough to put out a weekly poll every week at the Last Comic Shop over on our Twitter page at Last Comic Shop, which still exists. Twitter's still there, I think. So, Jay, it's a short poll recap this week with only 4 polls we're going to be looking at.
That is correct. 4 polls. The first one, new year, new season for Comic Cons. What is your favorite part of a Comic Con? Is it meeting comic book creators? Is it finding those hard to find back issues and hopefully getting a good deal on them? Or is it seeing what the MCU or the DCU is cooking up for the new 5 years or 10 years, whatever? They've got those big boards with all the different logos, stuff that's coming out. Or finally, Mikey Wood's favorite, cosplay.
Right.
Is that what you voted for, Mikey? Did you vote for the cosplay?
I voted for random nudity, but then you removed it. No,
I
I
thought
voted
that was
for meeting.
cosplay.
I voted for meeting creators. I really like meeting creators. I'm a fanboy. Like I really do. I have a good time, especially when they're super cool. Which, for the most part, they are.
Is that what you said too, Chad?
Yeah, it's always nice to go and be able to express gratitude for the people that have made the things that we spend all this time talking about and digging into. Although it was a close race because, as you know, Andy, you've been to cons with me. I have a lot of love in my heart for finding cheap trades and giant stacks of comic books to haul back to the car.
That's true. That's true. Last con we were at, he was wheeling and dealing. He would walk up to some, how much do you want for all of these? And they were like, and they gave him a bulk price. It was like he was buying mayonnaise at Costco.
Don't make that analogy ever again. I just threw up in my mouth.
What was the winner here, J.A.?
The winner, no real surprise, was meeting comic book creators.
Okay.
Getting your photo taken, getting that special issue you have signed, having a quiet word or two, or if you're in the Last Comic Book Shop, sitting down and talking to them for a while.
Absolutely, yeah. We met so many great people at cons, and they're always so gracious with their time and everything. By the way, Jay, what did you vote for?
Cosplay.
No.
Do they have a convention in the Philippines? Do they have like a
They have a cosplay convention.
Moving on. What was poll number 2, J.A.?
This was in line with the new Wakanda Forever movie that came out. Best underwater governance. Who runs his kingdom under the sea the best? Is it Namor? Is it Aquaman? Is it the Snorks? Or is it SpongeBob SquarePants?
Oh, good Lord. There's like a drop-off. 2 to 3, it's just like...
I was really disappointed that the Snorks didn't get more votes.
No representation from King Triton?
I was thinking more Ursula.
Ooh, yes.
Much better, really, if you think about it.
So ultimately, who won in this poll? I think it was...
Namor, like, took it with 72%. Not even
you
close.
Mean
Namor. Yeah,
Namor.
sorry.
He is
Namor.
stronger than a whale, and he can swim anywhere. And he has an awesome theme song. I don't know if, like, Aquaman has as cool of a theme song as Namor does. Who did you vote for, Mikey, though?
Well, Aquaman, just because I'm a DC guy. But, Namor's Spock with wings on his feet. That's all. No, Namor, I like him best when he decides to be a jerk. Like, sometimes he's, like, very heroic and like a good guy. But then sometimes he's like, I'm going to find Sue Richards and I'm going to do nasty things to her. And then I'm going to go and attack New York or something just for the hell, just cuz.
Right. There are issues where, like, I don't know, Namor, like, floods the entire city of New York.
Just
like,
for the hell of it.
Killing millions of people. Yeah. More people than probably Dr. Doom's ever killed. He's got a rap sheet a mile long. But, yeah, he does it for his peeps. He does it for those people of Atlantis. Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, I think New Yorkers just look at Namor as like, that's like the blackout. Oh, we had the Namor flooding. We had the blackout in 72.
They need to wash the streets somehow.
Right.
Like, it just washes that's all it is. He's got an agreement with the mayor.
Like, he's a New Yorker. As long as it's not killing out the Yankees, who cares?
Right. And there's another flood.
They got to wash all that Costco mayonnaise out of the street.
It goes to Stan Lee.
That's number 3, J.A.
Favorite Thanksgiving film. This was a non-comic book related a bit, but we try to do that over Thanksgiving. Take a break. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the great John Candy movie. Avalon, didn't get a lot of votes. Home for the Holidays, which got even less votes. And A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving.
Ah, yes. That was my vote. Hands down. Anytime you can eat toast and popcorn and jelly beans as a meal, you're a winner in my book. But that didn't win at all.
No. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with nearly 60% because, it's John Candy. You can't go wrong.
Well, it's John Candy and John Hughes. Here's a question for the whole group. Which is a better movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles or Uncle Buck? Haha, that's why I'm the host, because I give you the hard questions. Chad?
Yeah. I don't want to choose. I want the Gristle and Steve Martin.
Mikey?
Right. Hey, lady, here's a quarter. Why don't you go downtown and have a rat gnaw that thing off your face? They're two different things. Avalon's a really good movie, by the way, but they're like two completely different things. And you didn't have Thanksgiving on the list, and that's depressing.
Oh, okay. I've never even seen that. J.A., what are you voting for?
Between Uncle Buck and Planes, Trains, they're two different movies. You can't really. I feel bad putting one above the other. They should come in like a classic VHS double pack.
That's true. That's true. See, the obvious answer is Uncle Buck. I mean, he makes a pancake using a snow shovel. Like, that's. I had to rewatch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles this because I couldn't remember the end. So.
It's one of the more serious of the John Hughes movies, which is cool. She's having a baby and stuff like that. But
ew,
that's a great movie.
It is a great movie.
Yeah.
What was number 4, J.A.?
Number 4 was last year, maybe, or the year, even maybe 2 years ago. We had asked who's your favorite new Fantastic Four member. She-Hulk won that one. This time we asked who is your favorite original Fantastic Four member. Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, The Thing, or The Human Torch.
Okay. And we'll go around real quickly since we got 4. Chad, your vote on this?
This is a tough one. I love The Thing. I love The Human Torch. I'm not a big Mr. Fantastic fan. But Sue Storm gets my vote just because she's Mama Bear. you do not mess with Mama Bear. She's the most powerful of them all, and the most beautiful and elegant of them all, and just the best of us all. She's Sue Storm.
Mikey?
I like Thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
J.A.?
Yeah.
I went with Sue Storm. You don't poke the bear. Unless you're Namor.
Namor. Then you could poke her all the time. You just poke her twice on Sundays. No, the answer is the Thing, and I think he was ultimately the one that won. I mean, your ever-loving, blue-eyed Thing, he's the best. He really is. He's the heart and soul of that team. And he's the only one, I hate to say it, with any sort of pathos. And you get a little bit of that with Sue Storm because she was put down, or she was considered not an important member for so many years, that she's gained so much ground in the last couple of decades that it's been awesome to see her growth as a character. But the Thing's pathos is hard to beat. It's some of the best in comic books.
If he could just talk like a normal human being, it would be nice, though. It's clobbering time.
Nobody says that.
Everybody says that. I was at the supermarket the other day. Somebody cut in line to me. I said, it's clobbering time, as I hit them over the head with my bagel.
Benji Grimm. Do you remember the Thing cartoon from the 70s?
Yes.
Thing Ring Do Your Thing with the Shmoo when he was on with
the Shmoo. Yeah,
Dark
I do
Times for
Shmoo.
Marvel properties.
That's from Little Abner. I don't understand how they got involved.
And the Flintstones. He was on the Flintstones too. The Shmoo. That's right.
He's the only one who can hold down a solo book.
Better than the Human Torch, who just flames out.
Yes. I had a hard time picking between Thing and Reed Richards because I like them both, and Sue. But those are my three. Honestly, the Human Torch is usually the character I could probably live without, just simply because I never got him. Like, I just never, I don't know. He didn't have a lot of growth. He was always like, look at me. I'm so young and hip. And I'm like, I don't get this.
He's like the Abercrombie and Fitch of the Fantastic Four.
In any case, we've got Mr. Miracle coming up right after these messages. Make sure that you're going out to @LastComicShop on Twitter every week to make sure that you see some of these great polls and vote in them. Because if you don't, we'll just keep putting them out, and so just vote for them.
Has this ever happened to you? You're in bed, drifting off, and suddenly think,
who would win in a tug-of-war match between Superboy and Merlin?
did Marvel ever try to make a long-haul trucker into a superhero?
How would it work out if I named my dog after a D-list supervillain?
The answers in order are Merlin.
Yes.
And Amazing.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Mike.
And we host the podcast 10 Cent Takes, a show that looks at weird, silly, and cool moments from comics and how they're woven into the larger fabric of history.
Moments like the time Superman shilled for Radio Shack.
When Archie got tempted by the devil.
Oh, and then there was that time that DC Comics gave a superhero AIDS in an effort to be topical.
It's always weird around here, but we'd like to think it's also interesting.
So come with us and commit random acts of pop culture archaeology, one issue at a time.
If you'd like to learn more, head over to 10centtakes.com.
Hi everyone, I'm Nerd Bummer.
And I'm Tactic, and we're two of the hosts of the Online Warriors podcast.
Our podcast started as a way for three best friends to keep in touch and discuss their nerdy hobbies like movies, gaming, tech, and more.
Since then, we've grown into a great community. Every Wednesday, we chat about the latest nerdy news before getting hands-on with our weekly nerdy adventures.
And don't forget our high-stakes trivia game. Come join the fun at onlinewarriorspodcast.com and every major podcast platform. And now, back to the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and we are going to review Mr. Miracle that came out of DC Comics and eventually, I think, shifted over to their Black Label circa 2017 and 2018. And so let's start with J.A. Why don't you give us the who's it's and the what's it's?
Before we get into the review, we just want to say that this book deals with suicide and attempted suicide. If you or someone you love is in crisis, please dial 988, the suicide prevention hotline, for free confidential support for people in distress, prevention, and crisis resources.
Good call, dude.
Good idea, yeah.
Okay, so this was written by Tom King, art by Mitch Gerrits. He also did the colors and the variant covers, which I thought were actually the real covers because I didn't like the real covers. I preferred the variant covers. I like when my interior artist does the cover, so I'm going to call them the real cover. Clayton Cowles was the letterer. Nick Darrington did all the covers, which I am calling the variant covers. He did the real covers.
Way to confuse folks right out the gate.
I know.
It's just a little bit of what you're going to get with this whole book.
Oh, buddy. All right. So, Mikey, you have been tasked with the 10-cent synopsisizing of this 12-issue series that won the Eisner Award for Best Writer and Artist.
Yes.
So, Mikey, what you got, sir?
What I think it's about? Mr. Miracle, scot-free, finds the one thing that he can't escape and realizes what life is all about by dying. That's what I think it's about. That's what I think it's about. But we'll get into that. Like, he's dead the whole time. But there's way more than that. I mean, it's like, there's so much.
General in the war against Darkseid, and then he gets promoted, and people die. And then he has his relationship with Big Barda, who Funky Flashman calls Big Barbara.
Big Barbara.
Big Barbara. Yes.
Barbara.
That brought me so much joy. I don't know why.
Funky Flashman was my favorite character in this book.
It
Seriously was. It was the best parts of Stan Lee. It was Stan Lee as you should remember Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Especially when he's playing with Jacob, Mr. Miracle's son. Gosh, those were just heartwarming. Look, Jolly Jack knows what he's talking about. It's his story. I'm just here to put in the words.
But, there's more to it. See, this is where we're going to go with this, because there's more to it, and you'll hear how much more to it there is, because it's like many Tom King things, and one of the reasons that I really like him is because it's never really necessarily about what it seems to be about.
So on this week's show, we're going to do something very interesting. This is one of Chad's favorite books.
Love it.
And he has spent many and many hours poring over this book. And he's got one of those bulletin boards with the strings and the thumbtacks trying to figure all this out. So he's got a lot of theories about Mr. Miracle. And he's come up with some of his biggest ones, which are going to drive today's conversation. So without further ado, it's now time for Chad's Conspiracies.
Yeah. They're not conspiracies. This is hard-forged analysis from many hours of digging deep and making wild assumptions.
All right, so conspiracy number 1.
All right, I'll start with the biggest one, okay? Is Mr. Miracle infected with the anti-life equation, and is that really just depression?
Well, it symbolizes depression because, it's Tom King's kind of, every writer injects himself into the story a little bit. And some people don't like that about him. I do.
Yeah. A little bit of background on Tom King. He had served in the CIA prior to becoming a comic book writer. That definitely plays into some of the things that he writes about. Andrew?
I would say yes. I think that he's been infected with the anti-life equation and its depression, just simply because my take on the anti-life equation is it's a very nebulous concept. I never understood it in any of the DC. I was like, what the hell is this? I don't get this. I don't know what this is. But when he says it just means that you lose all hope, I was just like, oh, well, that's like clinical depression. That makes sense to me as a person. So long story short, maybe I'm taking a mental shortcut in my explanation of this, but hey, if the shoe fits, it fits.
That's Jay. Any additional thoughts?
Well, I mean, this entire book is about a man's midlife crisis and coming to terms with having a baby. And it just happens to have comic book characters, so he had to use some tropes of the field to fill it out so people would read it. It just happens to be Mr. Miracle and Big Barda and the anti-life equation, whatever. It's depression, it's marriage, it's childbirth, it's child rearing, and it's dealing with a family that's growing and living in a small condo where they've got to knock down walls and put in a new bathroom.
The other thing I wanted to point out, one of the things this book is famous for, Tom King's panels where he says, Darkseid is, and just... I don't need a response from this because I don't care. On my reading of the book, anytime you see Darkseid is in these panels, depression is winning. Hopelessness is winning. Like the anti-life to me is that hopelessness. It's, you've sucked out all the joy of everything. And if you watch the panels where they throw in the Darkseid is, that's when Scott is getting ready to make a poor decision or getting ready to just lay down, and then you might see things like Barda coming to his rescue and punching out Orion or yelling at Light Ray to shut that F up, Light Ray. But every time you see those Darkseid is, that's depression winning. The other thing I wanted to ask you guys, I don't know if you picked up on the glitches.
That was my question. I was going to say, what's going on with the glitches? Is it a VHS tape? Is it he's dead and this is his mind and memory? Sort of, you remember things and then you watch like old videos and it's not quite how you remember them. I was like, the 1980s seem to be a lot more colorful in my memory than on the videotape because it's all washed out. Or so I don't know. It's like everyone remembers the 60s as being pale because all the videos were. Well,
see, I think I might be the only person on this show that doesn't think that Mr. Miracle's dead. My take on the whole thing was that he's not dead. That anytime there's a glitch, that's the anti-life equation messing with his mind and making him believe like this reality doesn't really exist. You don't have a right to be happy. You don't have a right to be, where you're at. It's like self-doubt. It's death and taxes. Awful things are going to happen to you, so you might as well accept it. That's just my take. Mikey?
Right? About the glitches in particular?
Yeah, yes. The glitches. Let's look at the glitches for a minute.
He's kind of having trouble, really, like he's losing focus, like he's losing, because it looks like VHS tracking and things like that. So it's like maybe his memories are blurring about what it actually is. Having dealt with mental illness in my life before, it's something that was familiar, like it was oddly familiar. It's like, okay, I get it.
No, that's my interpretation. And Andy, just for the record, I think I'm on your side. I have a totally different reading of this book that is very hopeful. But I think those glitches are like blackout moments. He's in a bad place. Scott Free is infected with the anti-life equation from the beginning. And those glitches, it's not just him succumbing, it's him losing it. Like, he glitches out whenever Orion is killed. Do you guys think he kills Orion?
No, I actually don't. Because I think Darkseid sincerely kills him because he wants to screw with Scott. Darkseid's all about control, and he doesn't want to relinquish control over Scott, and so like he's putting him in a position where he can't win. That's like Darkseid's MO.
There you go. I love it. The other thing I just wanted to bring up about the glitches is like when they occur, because they're not always in battle. Like, but you will see like pronounced glitches, like 6 or 7 in a row in times of great stress. Like when he's in the interview talking to the great Godfrey, he glitches out a little bit and it's like he blacks out. But it also will occur in like small intimate moments. Like when he's in the bedroom with Big Barbara. There are some of those glitchy moments. And even sometimes like when his son starts crying and he has to go into the crib, and like that moment before he picks up his son, like there's a glitchy moment. And for me, the way I always read that is similar to what Mikey said, that loss of focus, that unease, that even when things are going well, I always equate it to I'm deathly afraid of heights. Okay. And so when I go and I'm in a position like on the top of a building and I look down, there's always that part of me in the back of my head that's like, what if you fell? You get like that kind of vertigo where it's like, and it's not something I can control. And I have to step back even just to control myself. And that's what I think those glitches are, where it's like, he could fall into whatever at any time, even when he's most happy, like, oh crap, there it comes again.
It's a manifestation of his psyche dealing with outside influences and outside forces that he wasn't prepared or ready to deal with. So, new things, new input, be it in battle or the baby, or, I think he glitches even when he's putting his hands in concrete at Man's Chinese Theater, which I really like.
Against Jack Kirby.
One of the other things I was going to bring up was I thought that the glitches are intrinsically tied to the conversation he has. I think it's in issue 5 where he's on a date with Barda, and he starts talking about Kant and the whole notion of I think, therefore I am. I think it's one of those moments where sometimes when you suffer from mental illness, because I also have experienced it in my life, you can start doubting reality. And you can doubt like your interpretation of reality and what's real and what's not. And I feel like those glitches are those moments when like he doesn't know whether or not it's actually happening or not. You know, he's being intimate with Barda. Like maybe he's like, well, how could I be, you know, with such a wonderful woman? Like maybe that intensity is scaring him. And he's like, this can't be real. But I think it's intrinsically tied with this whole notion of like, I don't know whether even I exist. I mean, just a thought, just throwing it out there.
No, I love it. Now, we are getting kind of heavy, so let's break up the heaviness a little bit. Despite all the glitching, despite the mental illness, this book is hilarious.
Yeah.
And, like, every issue, I would find a part that, like, would leave me smiling or laughing or, you know, some gag. So do you guys have a favorite gag or a favorite page or a favorite 9-panel spread or...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm just going to say it right here and now. This series has the best 9-panel spread of all time. And that is Darkseid eating a veggie tray. That experience for me, I don't know, the juxtaposition of basically death dunking carrots in ranch dressing. Such a banal...
Conspiracy theory? Do you think he double dips?
He's got to. He's evil. Like, why not?
Also, he's eating from the tray that will ultimately kill him.
I mean, vegetables aren't always good for you.
That's right.
Especially with all that ranch. What I'm saying is the juxtaposition of those two things. That's why I read comics. It's really hard to do those kind of things and not make it seem cliched, not make it seem corny. But in this, it works. And it works in spades. So, yeah, I just got to throw that out there. J.A.?
Right. I loved when, after they had Jacob, and they're just basically working parents. So, she's at the job, so I'm looking after Jacob, and then he's at the work, and they're always talking through the mother box. I love how the mother box is essentially an iPhone or an Android device, and they just treat the mother box as like... And he's like, the boom tube. It'll be here in 3 minutes when he's out drinking with his buddies. Oh, no, now it's been 4 minutes. I thought those things were supposed to be right on time. He's basically complaining that his Uber's late.
Yeah.
Nice. Mikey, do you have a favorite page or gag? Or?
There's so many funny things in it. Like how she breaks the news to him that he's pregnant.
Oh, that whole issue.
It's a whole issue. That's wonderful. But I think the part that made me sort of like kind of crack up the most were the Furies in the waiting room when she's waiting to have the baby. And like he comes out and he's exhausted and she's like, I'm going to kill you with that knife. And he's like, well, okay.
They've given him the knife. It's the only thing that could cut Barda.
It's epic in its scope. These are gods fighting gods. But then it's brought back down to a very relatable thing. It's like going and getting groceries like his dialogue is so good. It's so natural and so there's the shot. It's a drink on the bar and people talking, and you know exactly who's talking by the dialogue. Like you don't even have to see them. You know exactly that it's Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, and you know from the first conversation bubble when they're talking about what are we going to call ourselves, blue and the gold and the red and the green and the yellow. I think somebody says like it's getting pretty late, and they're like, yeah, but Booster, you have a time machine, can't you fix pretty late? And he's like, well, yeah, but I think I left it in the hotel. Like just like real
the relationship dynamics. He has the buddy relationships down. He has the brother relationships down with Orion. And that whole scenario. I did want to bring up, though, one of my favorite scenes is the one where Scott Free has been sentenced to be executed by his brother Orion. And he has like 1 day left, and it's him and Barda, and they're sitting in traffic on the 405. Barda's stressed about everything, and, to use the boom tube would cause some sort of disruption. So they're sitting there, and he's like, do we have a song? Like, I have the mother box. I can play a song. She's like, we met in the pits, Scott. All the noises were the moans of the damned. It was not a moment. And he's like, Motherbox, can you play some of the moans of the dam? And then, like, for the next 4 or 5 panels, like, no, my leg! Oh, they took my leg! Ah! Yeah. And they're just sitting in the car laughing and smiling, and like, that's what relationships are about. They're about those conversations. They're about those moments, the in-between time when you're together. And boy does Tom King, and Mitch Gerard's too. I don't want to sell Mitch Gerard short because he is masterful in this. It is such a relationship. And every issue, there's a moment.
There's so much. Like when what's his name tells that they go to pee, and what's his name tells the story about having a relationship with Leonardo da Vinci, and he tells that really great story about the two painters, and then like pages and pages later, he's like, "Hey, remember that story I told you about? I was lying." He's like, because when you're talking to the Son of God, you have to say something.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, that's the thing.
So good.
The most amazing thing was, getting to meet Tom King at Baltimore Comic-Con recently. And when I was sitting there and I was talking with him, basically simply asked Chad and I, he's like, what would you guys do to like fix like the DC universe or movies or something like that? Or why are MCU movies better? I don't know, whatever you said. And I said, I have sometimes difficulty because the stakes don't seem something that I can relate to. They seem like gods punching gods, and I just don't get it. And he was like, yes, that's it. And if you read Mr. Miracle, that's what he fixes. It's not about gods punching gods. It's about the relationships.
That's the work.
The Marvel movies are Saturday morning cartoons. The DC movies are Wagnerian operas. I mean, it is gods punching gods, because that's what they are. It just depends on where you come from. You can come from like the angle of Grant Morrison when he wrote JLA, where everybody was a representation of a Greek god and things like that. Or you could come from an angle of when J.M. DeMatteis wrote Justice League, and they were, cracking jokes. They even make a reference to that in Mr. Miracle. They're sitting outside drunk, and he says "blah ha ha" at one point. That's a reference. Because I think there's
that's JLI.
One of the things that's interesting about Tom King and fans, and a lot of fans don't dig on Tom King, and the one thing they always say about him is that he doesn't know these characters. And I think that's bullshit, and I think he knows the characters better than they do, because this book is so loaded with references and just...
As someone who doesn't know these characters at all, I mean, I've never read a Mr. Miracle book before. I've never read a Big Barda book before. I mean, I know Orion from the New Gods that we read, just the original stuff. I loved it. I was like, give me more of this. I'm team Big Barda now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, she's the best.
And maybe people who have lived with these characters and grown into them, maybe it's one of those things that they don't like how Tom King is handling those characters. But as someone who doesn't have any skin in the game at all, because I never knew any of them, I loved it. And now I want to read more of them. So as an opening into the DC world and into the New Gods world, it's very approachable. It wasn't sort of just like, Superman against Doomsday with makeup cities being destroyed. They don't even live in a makeup city. They live in Hollywood. Which is kind of a makeup city, but that's the truth, right?
It's all fake. To go back to Mikey's point, I don't think Tom King doesn't understand the characters. Part of this book is all about how he doesn't give a damn about continuity. And so Darkseid can rip out his eye in this book, and it doesn't matter. If it's a great story, if it's a compelling story, then that's the most important thing. And so there's so many other things like in his Batman run that he disregards, or Omega Men. That's like so many things are missing outside of continuity. If you're a stickler for that, if you're like, well, Kanto wouldn't really do that. I mean, Kanto is obviously the greatest fighter, and he couldn't get punched out by big. No, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss out on all the fun.
And that's a shame. Yeah, that's a shame. Continuity ruins everything.
Indeed. All right, so I'm gonna fast forward some of my crackpot theories because we've talked a lot already. The tape. Did you guys notice the tape over the eyes?
The tape over the eyes.
Yeah.
No, I did
go
not.
back and look at Oberon, issue 1.
Well, Oberon's dead. That's what it is. Dead people.
Yep.
It's drawn in like there's a piece of Scotch tape on the panel.
Oh wow! I totally
still
missed
see
that.
through it. You can still, So I honestly, I totally missed that too.
So yeah, if you look at issue number 1, you'll see that the eyes are. It's like there's Scotch tape over Oberon's eyes. Whenever Granny Goodness talks later on in the book, you will see tape over Granny Goodness's eyes. And so what do you guys think King and Gerrards are trying to get at in terms of taping over these characters that have passed away but are now communicating with Scott free? Any ideas?
And can I say Danny DeVito has to play Oberon? Like, he has to.
I don't know if I took it as tape as much as part of the glitch, like part of the unreality. For example, the conversations that he has with Oberon, I think it's in the last issue. I feel like those are just conversations that he wanted to have with Oberon that he never got a chance to. I know that my dad has passed away, and there were some things that I would have wanted to say. And, part of the healing of, sometimes losing somebody that was very close to you is having a moment where you just talk out loud to that person as if they're there, because it's therapeutic in some ways. I didn't take it anything other than that as him just trying to make sense. Maybe I'm not reading into this as much. Maybe it's just pretty straightforward for me.
Well, it's funny because when I was reading this, and I'm not always the best at seeing symbolism at first. It takes me a couple of times. Like, Watchmen is loaded with. I mean, the blood over the eye visual thing, you can see that repeated all through. But like the whole fearful symmetry issue, and I had no idea that was a thing. So, this is my second full read through of this, and I picked up a few more things, but then I wonder if I'm creating symbolism in my head. So I missed that, the tape over the eyes, but I was wondering if there's symbolism with comics in general and the inclusion of Jack Kirby's handprints and the fact that the baby's name is Jack and like he's
notice the tape over the kid's eyes too, buddy.
Yeah, he's dead. My theory is that Scott Free is dead, or it's like It's a Wonderful Life kind of thing. Because I haven't used him since this. Mr. Miracle is a different person now. Mr. Miracle is
Shiloh.
Is Shiloh. So
but DC sucks. And how do you follow this up?
Right. You can't. I mean, this is the definitive story anyway.
Because I like that storyline with Shiloh. Shiloh is good.
It ends with the Mr. Miracle series will not be continued.
So, J.A., any tape things before I espouse my theory here?
No.
I want to hear it. So
I'm very similar to what you were talking about, Andy, is when people are gone, you're left with the memory of those people, right? And so you have these images. And the way I saw the tape is you can have those conversations with those people, but ultimately you're pasting life back into them to have those conversations. You're taping the eyes back in. And even at the end, when Darkseid is taking out his eye for the anti-life equation, that's your spark of hope that you're trying to imbue in these other people, that you're okay, we can talk now. You've taped all that stuff back in. You're holding it together with twine and wire and duct tape and everything else. Because my reading of this, Mikey, is not that he's dead. My reading of this is that it's not about death. It's about Mr. Miracle escaping depression. And I think he escapes depression through the support of Big Barda. I think he escapes depression through being able to work out his issues with his family. I think he escapes depression through becoming a father. And there's that scene. It's a 2-page spread where he's on the battlefield. And, he's fighting and he's getting his ass kicked. And he falls down. And you get a Darkseid Is panel where it's depression wins for that brief moment. And then the mother box turns on. And there's that ping. And then the mother box cues in. And it's Barda. And she's like, Scott, you got to listen to this. He's Funky, show him the picture. And his kid is talking. And you see in the 9-panel grid, God bless the 9-panel grid, you see Mr. Miracle pick himself up. Just one motion at a time. They're like, Scott, every time he sees your face, he's saying, da, da, da. And then Scott starts singing, if that mockingbird won't sing. And he stands up and he walks back into battle. At that moment, he has what he needs to escape whatever problems he's going to face.
That's cool.
And so my reading is a much more hopeful version.
Yeah.
Andy?
No, and I think that's how the series ends. I think just throwing out my only conspiracy theory from this particular reading.
Andy's conspiracy theory
is dealing with Metron at the end, where Metron shows him, and I think that's why a lot of people think he's dead, because he shows them the other world with Superman and Batman or whatever. My take on that is he shows them this because part of this journey is, as we've all mentioned, to finality, to like a part where like Mr. Miracle is going to be able to live a normal life. He's going to be living a happy life. He's not having to worry about the war and Darkseid and his jerk older brother and whatever else and all this politics and even stupid Highfather and his guilt around being left by his dad and stuff like that. He doesn't have to deal with any of that. He's going to finally have a good life. And Metron's like, look, you could go back to the way things were, where it's like DC continuity 24 hours a day, where the story is going to continue forever and your battles and your journeys and your adversaries are going to continue forever. Don't you want that? And he's like, hell no. I don't want that. I've escaped that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. He's going to lay on the couch with Barda.
Exactly. I'm going to lay on the couch. I'm going to live my life without all this drama. Thank you.
I don't need all those superheroes. I just need them for T-shirts and baby dolls, because that's what they are. Batman's a doll in the crib, and he's always wearing. He's got the Batman logo one day. He's got the Flash logo one day. He's essentially us. He's wearing comic book T-shirts, and then he's going around the house dealing with a baby who can't go down and is a bit colicky.
And then at the end, he's wearing an Adam Strange T-shirt, and King does that. He hides hints as to what his next book is going to be.
One last crackpot theory, Mikey, and this is something where I don't have an answer, and I've asked Tom King to his face.
And what did he say?
I didn't like it.
Well, what did he say? Tell us the thing and then tell us what he said.
Okay, so Barda's eyes. You guys notice how Barda's eyes shifted color?
Changed color, yeah.
At one point, he even calls it out in the first issue. He's like, your eyes are green. Weren't your eyes blue? She's like, no, my eyes have always been hazel or whatever the color is. I'm colorblind.
Brown.
Yeah.
Brown. When the eyes are changing, what's up with that?
Well, what did he say?
He left me with a question about, well, what's real and what's not?
Yeah.
And so, the questioning of reality. And you can see throughout the course of the book, there are occasions where Barda's eyes are blue. There are occasions where Barda's eyes are brown. There's one panel where Barda's one eye is blue and her other eye is brown.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about this whole time. That when you're suffering from mental illness, that can really mess with your perception of reality. Even if you remember things properly, like you can start doubting yourself. Scott Free is like consumed with self-doubt. Yeah. Like the guy, his dad left him. He was tortured for most of his childhood. Like, he's got a lot of issues. And so if you were really messed up, like asking your wife, like, wasn't your birthday that day? And you're like, no, my birthday's always been this. And you're like, I don't remember that. And so that's just my take. Maybe I'm cutting to the chase.
They even mention it, that he creates a world that's false. They even say you've managed to escape that false world that you made. So perhaps it's like, when her eyes are brown, it's the world he's creating for himself. And when they're blue, it's the actual one. And when they're mixed, it's sort of like a mix of the two. I don't know. This is one of those books that like I see myself going back to.
Oh, yeah. No, I love it. All right. Before we get to ratings, let's just end on a high note. No more conspiracies. Give me one thing from this book that you thought was absolutely awesome. Maybe it's a relationship thing. Maybe it's an action thing. Maybe it's a comedy thing. Andy, go start us off.
I mean, I already brought up the veggie tray. I can't. I will say this, like from beginning to end, and it's hard to say that there was one issue that stood out above all the others. But if I was like on a desert island and I could only take one issue of this book, it would be issue 11. I mean, issue 12 is all the conclusion of that, but this is the high point. And everything from like this unstoppable laser that's being, hidden inside of a baby carriage, the 9-panel grid where Jacob is scooting over and he grabs Darkseid's nose. There's even a scene where they first show up and like the Furies are like hugging and like, you can tell that there's a sisterhood there. Everything.
It's like the in-laws. It's when you go over to the in-laws. You're like, oh, hi, Uncle Tom. Hi.
They sit at that table, but it's not. There's no table legs. It's just people that they've captured, and they're under there.
And my goodness, when there's that scene where just Darkseid's just laying into him, and he just wants to lay there and he just wants to take it. And Barda, being Barda, and I hope everybody in their life has somebody that will pick them up like Barda does with Scott in this and says, no, get up. Like, you're better than this.
Well, she does the Orion thing. She does what Orion does in the first issue where, he's knocked down and Orion keeps saying stand and he's like standing, and they hit him again.
But it matters.
Right. By the end of it, you see that what Orion did to him saves his life.
And Orion literally saves his life because that's how he makes
right
the foreign sword or whatever that thing's called.
Yeah, it was just the best issue. There you
Jay, do you have a moment that stands out for you that we haven't talked about that you want to say is, oh, that's awesome?
Yes, I love when they're looking at the ultrasound. They're in the hospital. Big Bart is pregnant for the second time. And the nurse is like, well, we're going to do some measurements today, but she looks good. If anything, maybe a little big. Aww. And I was like, that's perfect. So he's got a son, Jacob, and he's got a big daughter.
Oh my goodness. And those moments, we're all fathers here. When they're in the ultrasound and there's like no heartbeat for a minute and like, oh my goodness, like immediately, like your heart goes out.
That little touch of the nurses calling her mom, because they actually do that as the woman is mom during the birth process. Okay, mom, give it a push, give it a, that's something that, you only know from experience. Like you only know that from being there.
All right, Mikey, do you have a moment of awesomeness that we haven't talked about?
Oh, goodness. There's so many of them. I really like when, like, they just, for all intents and purposes, killed Darkseid, and she gives him shit about saying the F word in front of him. Like that, because it's a combination of things. It's like, okay, these are two people that have seen war before basically all their life. They've seen all. I mean, it was either that or the fact that, like, I could hear Granny Goodness's voice in my head, even though I've never heard Granny Goodness's voice. When I read it, I used a voice. Like, I was like, my darling boy.
Oh,
like, that's what she sounds like to me. She sounded like Cruella de Vil from the original.
And then the punchline on the last page of the 9-panel grid, where they're all standing there and everybody's all beat up. And, they're using the Jack Kirby exposition. Darkseid's dead, laying there, stabbed through the head. It's Scott, it's Barda, it's Scott, it's the baby. And then the baby's like, so hilarious. Oh, man, that was great. Andy, you mentioned issue 11, and I know Mikey has mentioned my favorite issue of this book. It's issue 6.
Yes.
It's the one where they are talking about the apartment. Another bedroom? We need another bedroom? It's like, we have a blow-up mattress. That's fine. So who's going to be in the living room? Who's in the new room?
And you knew where it was going. You knew where it was going. Like,
I know.
She's pregnant. She's pregnant.
Kind of.
Well, it's even before that, where they're like, that time we had Betty over, she went to get water and then got stabbed. She's like, but that won't happen again. I put a sign on the Stabatron. She's like, did you? It's like, I'm going to put a sign on the Stabatron. Like, it's those little things, man. I am
glad that you bring that issue up. My favorite sequence or 9-panel grid in that particular issue is I love Mitch Gerard's drawing of Mr. Miracle climbing on top of the rope.
Oh, yeah, while Bart is underneath.
Bart is underneath the rope. Just how they're in sync with each other. They're on opposite sides of this rope, but like they're going at the same time. They're going on this journey. It's just, we've talked a lot about Tom King. Mitch Gerard's nails.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. It does sound like we kind of short shafted him, but it's the two of them together. It's just, and I understand he drew a run of Punisher. And if anybody could get me to buy Punisher, it would be that, because I don't like Punisher. The only other run I own is Howard Chaykin's run. And there's little tiny touches, like when they're coming out of the bar and Skeets is kind of scooting around. There's like a little dotted line behind him, like you can hear it. You can hear him going like. It's an image I can hear. Like, I don't know.
Right. There's so much. We might have to review this book again next year.
Well,
but
let's
get to our ratings. And JA, as always, brings for us our rating scale. So, JA, what's it going to be?
One thing that I've pointed out enough, I mean, all this is built on Jack Kirby's world. So you get all these crazy names for stuff and crazy named characters like Granny Goodness and my favorite, the Boom Tube. So 1 out of 4 Boom Tubes. because they go boom.
Any case, I think this is going to be a pretty simple grade. Maybe I'll be wrong. I don't know. So I'll go first. 4 out of 4. 4 boom tubes. I don't need to say anything more. It's great. Go pick it up today. J.A.?
Yep, I'm 4 out of 4 boom tubes as well. In fact, I just bought it on Amazon. Right now, I'm getting the...
Ooh, did you get the deluxe edition hardback?
The deluxe edition hardback.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
I need to get that.
That's got... to see the script side by side with some of the images.
I read all the individuals.
That's a treat.
Yeah.
That is a treat.
Not only did I buy it in trade and get an autograph and get a little sketch in there for Mitch Gerrits, I went back and bought all the issues and have it digitally. I'm going to end up shelling out for that, the deluxe hardcover too. This is just a book that's worth having all the time. Anyway, Mikey, what's your ratings?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I want to thank you guys for making me reread this because I promptly went and read Vision, and Vision is awesome too. So anyway, I mean, it's a 4. It's 4 boom tubes and a mother box. Like, it's more than 4, and it deserves every award that it won.
Yeah, I cannot think of a book that has spoken to me more in the last 25 years than this book. You know, everything from at the very end, Scott shaves off his depression beard, like there's so much, like the fatherhood angle, the relationship angle, and King and Gerrits, they just kill it. And like I said, this is probably my favorite modern comic book. If I could give it more than 4, I would, but I'm not going to go Andy and Judge Dredd.
Oh.
So,
well, as I said, and Barta does love when he shaves off the beard. Oh, you look nice.
that's it. I still have my depression beard. I haven't shaved it off yet, but I'll get to that point because hope springs eternal, just like hope springs eternal for Mr. Miracle. Right. I've got that family behind me.
Fun final question. Since we give it all unanimous 4 out of 4s, we're starting off season 3. Let's maybe plant a flag here. Is this the best book we've covered on this show?
Sure.
We got a sure from Mikey. J.A.?
I don't know. We covered a lot of really good books.
All right. Chad?
I want to consult the data.
Yeah.
Give me a minute.
I was just looking. So Mouse, we gave all 4s. Spider-Man's Craven's Last Hunt, all 4s. Parker, the Martini Edition, all 4s.
Yep.
V for Vendetta, all 4s.
Yep. And with that said, J.A., none of them come close. This is I go back to my choice.
Wonder Woman Dead Earth.
I love Wonder Woman Dead Earth. I love Superman Smashes the Klan. They are both fantastic books that I would recommend based on your age to just about everybody. But I genuinely believe in my heart of hearts, this is the best book in the last 25 years. It's the best book we've done on the show to this point. I've looked at the data. I've crunched the numbers. This is the tops. And going back, Mikey brought up the question about, do I love everything that Tom King has done? That answer is no. Tom King as an author can be hit or miss for me. The stuff that I love, I really enjoy, but like things like Rorschach didn't speak to me that much. Omega Men didn't speak to me. Strange Adventures I liked, but I agree with Andy that it was a bit of a letdown on the other side. And Batman would go back and forth. Like there'd be some really great stories in Batman and some stories where it's like, oh, this is what I'm reading. Okay. You don't capture lightning in a bottle often like they do. Although if I see King and Gerrits working on a book, I'm certainly going to pick it up. Supergirl was great, but then the ending was like, So they've definitely earned, based on Mr. Miracle, they've earned a pickup, whatever they put out there. But this is just tops of the tops.
The way you talk about it reminds me of my thoughts of Saga, where you said, it spoke to you more than anything in 25 years. It's your favorite modern comic. That was what Saga was to me. That's how that actually got me back into comic books. Saga got me back into comic books. And reading this, I was thinking about, wow, this is so good. And this reminds me a lot of Saga too. It's adult. It deals with adult issues. It's interesting. It's complex. It's not black and white. There's even Darkseid, so vile and evil, has, there's complexity to him. He's not just this foil for Mr. Miracle. So everything you said, Chad, I agree with. I think that's why it's so great. And it's interesting to me that when I was reading this, I was thinking about the book that made a profound impact on me as a 40-year-old. And it's similar to you with this book.
Well, there you go. And we hope to bring you more of those books in future on other podcasts, because
it's all downhill from here.
I know.
The entire year.
More. They're all going to be like, they're not as good as Mr. Miracle, but you should still listen. Go out to www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast so you never miss any of our episodes. We've got 51 more coming up here in 2023, and we hope that you are along for the ride for all of them. And make sure that if you are bagging and boarding your comics, go out to bcwsupplies.com and make sure that you're using promo code LCSPOD to get 10% off all of those awesome things to protect comics like your collection of Mr. Miracle. So again, LCSPOD for 10% off bcwsupplies.com.
And find us on the socials at Last Comic Shop. And you can always go back to home base, www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. Jay, do we have any merch deals here to start the year off?
We do. If you want to be like Mr. Miracle and wear a comic book inspired t-shirt when you're lounging around the house and or going through trying to get your baby to go back to bed, check out our merch store. We've got Last Comic Shop t-shirts for all the family.
Make sure that you're tuning in next week. We are going to have an interview with Eisner Award winner Kelly Thompson, as well as artist Meredith McLaren, to talk about their new upcoming book, Black Cloak, which will be in comic book shops on January 11th. So make sure that you're tuning in next week so that you can hear all about this awesome new freshness with Mikey Wood joining us for another show. Any case, until next week, I'm the host with the most, Andy Larson. I was joined by Chad Smith and J.A. Scott, and we hope that you stay safe, stay with it.
Keep it together.
And remember that if Granny Goodness gives you a mirror that allows you to look underneath your skin,
you don't put it in the bathroom, you're going to piss off your wife. What are you doing, man?
The Last Comic Shop was a 2023 Black Angus production.